Picture this. It's a Tuesday morning and you're standing in your kitchen making coffee, and there's a small stack of envelopes sitting on the counter that you have been walking past for 3 weeks now. You haven't opened them. You know what's in them because your brain has already done the work for you, and the story it's telling is not a good one. It involves a tow truck, a court date, maybe something worse. And so the envelopes just sit there, getting older, while you quietly hope that ignoring a problem is the same thing as solving it. My name is Daniel, and what I want to do today is pull that story out of your head and replace it with the actual one, because the version your brain invents at 2 in the morning is almost entirely made up, and the real version has a lot more breathing room than you've been led to believe. Before anything else, there's one idea you need to carry through this entire video, because without it, nothing else makes sense. Not all debt is built the same way, and more importantly, not all debt behaves the same way when you go quiet on it. There are 3 categories, and they are nothing alike. The first is unsecured debt, which is your credit cards, your medical bills, things you borrowed against nothing but your own word. The second is secured debt, which is your car or your house, where you handed the lender something physical they're legally allowed to reclaim. And the third is government debt, taxes, federal student loans, which operates under a set of rules so aggressive that if a private company tried the same tactics, someone would go to prison. The whole point of this video is to show you where each one sits on a danger scale, and the answer is probably the opposite of what you've always assumed. Let's start at the bottom, with the one that causes the most panic and does the least damage, the credit card. You miss a payment, the due date passes, and here is what actually happens in the first 24 hours. A late fee appears, which, since the courts knocked out the federal cap in 2025, has snapped back up to around $40, and then absolutely nothing else. People assume that one missed payment detonates their credit score immediately. It doesn't. Credit card companies don't even report you to the bureaus until you're a full 30 days past due, which means if you paid on day 22 in a panic, the bureaus never knew. Your score doesn't flinch. You essentially got a free extension that the company never advertised. Think about how many people have drained an emergency fund sprinting to cover a bill they technically had more time on. That money is gone, and it didn't need to be. To make this tangible, imagine someone named Marcus with a $6,000 balance sitting at 22% interest. He has a brutal month and misses a payment. Day 1, that $40 fee hits. By 60 days, his card triggers what's called a penalty APR, and his rate jumps to just under 30% on the entire balance, which adds roughly $500 a year to what he owes going forward. The card company just quietly penalized him for being in a hard month by making every future month harder. By 180 days, the bank charges off the debt, which sounds dramatic but means they've simply reclassified it on their internal books and sold it to a third party for somewhere around 4 cents on the dollar. A $6,000 debt sold for maybe $240. The new buyer then chases Marcus for the full amount, and that gap between what they paid and what they collect is the entire business model. Understanding that math changes how intimidating those collection letters feel. Medical debt sits in this same unsecured bucket, but with its own strange rules. There was briefly a federal rule in 2025 that would have pulled medical debt off credit reports entirely. A court struck it down, but some protections held on. Paid medical collections get removed. Nothing gets reported until it's a year overdue, and anything under $500 never shows up at all, which means that surprise lab bill you got after a doctor's visit is genuinely less threatening to your financial life than being 2 weeks late on a credit card. File that somewhere useful. Now, here's where the mood shifts. The next category moves fast, and people almost never see it coming because it doesn't come with a strongly worded letter first. It comes with an empty parking spot. Your car loan is secured, meaning the lender has the legal right to take the car the moment you're in default, and in many states, default can mean a single missed payment. The Federal Trade Commission is blunt about this. The lender can, in many states, repossess your vehicle without a court order, without advance notice, and without stepping foot on your property to warn you. You walk outside on a Thursday morning and the car is simply gone. The only real constraint on the repo company is that they can't physically breach a locked structure or cause a confrontation. Your open driveway is fully accessible. And here's the part that actually deserves more attention. After they tow it, they send it to auction, where it sells well below market because repo auctions are wholesale environments filled with dealers paying rock-bottom prices. Your $12,000 car goes for $5,000. You'd expect that to zero out the balance. Instead, you now owe the $7,000 gap, plus the towing fee, plus the auction fee. They took the asset, sold it at a loss they chose to accept, and then billed you for that loss. The credit card gives you 6 months of slow buildup before anything real happens. The car can disappear before the weekend is over. Keep that contrast somewhere in the front of your mind. If you've been finding this useful, hit the subscribe button because the rest gets into territory most personal finance content skips entirely, which is where the real financial damage actually lives. Utilities sit in a slower lane. Electric, gas, water. They're legally required to warn you before disconnecting, usually 10 to 14 days in writing, and 42 states have cold weather protections that prevent them from shutting off heat during winter months. But there's a trap buried in that comfort. The moratorium is not forgiveness. The balance keeps climbing the entire time the protection is active, and when it lifts, the full amount arrives at once, plus reconnection fees, plus a security deposit the utility now requires before they'll trust you again. The people who get hurt by utility debt aren't usually the ones who couldn't pay anything. They're the ones who got protected, forgot to address it, and then faced the entire bill in one shot. A small payment every month almost always costs less than the emergency lump sum plus penalties. The system rewards steady motion and punishes the scramble. Rent is where the fear tends to live, the nightmare image of boxes on a curb, and it's worth being precise about what's real here. Your landlord cannot legally remove you without going through a court. Every state prohibits self-help eviction, meaning they cannot change the locks, cannot shut off utilities, and cannot touch your belongings. To legally remove you, they file a lawsuit, attend a hearing, win that hearing, and obtain a court-ordered writ before a sheriff, not the landlord, an actual sheriff, shows up. In an uncontested, fast-moving jurisdiction, that entire process takes roughly 5 weeks. In slower states, or with any contest, it runs 3 to 6 months. Eviction is serious, and it does follow you on rental history for years, but it is not a surprise. It is a process, with multiple visible steps, and you will see it coming well in advance. Now we climb to the tier where the rules change in a way that is genuinely uncomfortable. Government debt is not bound by the same courtroom requirements as everyone else, and in 2026, that distinction matters more than it has in years. Federal student loans have been in a quiet grace period since the pandemic, but that window has closed. Collections restarted, and garnishment notices began going out in early 2026, starting with roughly 1,000 borrowers and scaling up monthly. Here's what makes this different from a credit card. The Department of Education can take up to 15% of your disposable pay directly from your paycheck by mailing a letter to your employer. No lawsuit, no judge, no warning beyond 30 days. It can also seize your tax refund and pull from Social Security. There are income-driven repayment plans where if you earn very little, your required payment can legally be $0, and a rehabilitation program that wipes the default off your record after roughly 9 consistent payments. But the one thing that accelerates the damage more than anything else is silence. With government debt, going quiet is the one move that removes all your options. And then there is the IRS, which is the only entry on this entire list that can, without a courtroom, freeze your bank account, place a lien on property, garnish wages, and above a certain threshold, have the State Department cancel your passport. The penalty for not paying is 0.5% per month, painful but survivable. The penalty for not filing is 10 times that, 5% per month. People who hide from the IRS by not filing think they're buying time. They are multiplying the damage by 10.
Filing on time, even with $0 enclosed, cuts the penalty rate by 90%. The act of filing is itself a financial decision with real dollar consequences. The practical question this whole video is actually answering isn't what happens if you stop paying everything. Nobody makes that choice voluntarily. The question is, what do you pay first when there isn't enough to go around? And now you have the framework. Shelter first, because losing a home is the hardest thing to recover. Utilities next, because they compound quietly. Secured necessities like a work vehicle, because they disappear in days. Government obligations, because they collect without asking a judge. And unsecured debt last, the credit cards, the medical bills, the personal loans, because they are slow, they are negotiable, and without a lawsuit, they cannot take anything.
That order probably feels wrong. It's supposed to. The entire collection system is designed to make the loudest creditors feel the most urgent, when in reality, the bills that call you the most often are the ones with the least actual power over your life. If you want to keep building this kind of clarity around your own finances, there's a subscribe button here, and it costs nothing. The content only gets more specific from here. Here's the thing nobody in this conversation ever says out loud. The people who get financially destroyed usually aren't destroyed by the debt itself. They get destroyed by responding to it wrong. Paying the screaming card while the quiet car loan falls behind. Hiding from the IRS thinking it buys time. Making a $20 payment on a debt that's been legally expired for 4 years and accidentally restarting the entire statute of limitations. That last one is called zombie debt, and it is exactly what it sounds like. Collectors buy ancient, time-barred debts for almost nothing, then call and ask for a small, good-faith payment, knowing that in most states, even $1 resets the legal clock and brings a dead lawsuit back to life. Before you pay anything on an old debt, find out exactly how old it is, because sometimes the most expensive thing you can do is make the smallest payment. So, tonight, go open the envelopes, sort them by bucket, handle them in the order that protects your actual life, not the order that soothes the anxiety fastest. The thing that felt like a monster under the bed was just a stack of paper with different expiration dates on it, and you just learned how to read them. What's the one bill in your life right now that's causing the most stress? And after watching this, do you think it's actually as dangerous as it feels?